Hello and welcome to Hooting Mandrills. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Sam, and just in time for us to finally get our set review out for Lorwyn, there's an Alchemy release. Many of the cards in it are just 4 and 5 mana Brawl commanders that don't matter, but there is one card at least that I think is actually genuinely busted and going to be a huge part of Historic as a format until it maybe does too much in Alchemy and they change it, but we'll get right into that one. That is Acquatic Subtlety. Blue, blue, blue for a sorcery. Draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. Blue creature cards in your hand perpetually gain Evoke. Exile a blue card from your hand. So,
Busted.
yeah, what are some blue creatures that
You might want to subtlety out.
yes, you might want to evoke out? Well, Atraxa is blue. She's 3 other colors also, but she sure is blue. Legacy and Vintage players will tell you that a big part of Atraxa being good is that she pitches to Force of Will. Well, now you can pitch other things to her. The favor can be returned to the Phyrexian Angel. Another one that's blue, legal in Alchemy, if you care about that sort of thing still. Sin, Spira's Punishment. Sin is sort of interesting because you can stack the Evoke and ETB triggers the opposite way of how you normally do, and he sort of self-scams himself. He sacrifices, goes to the graveyard, and then starts doing his trigger. So, you know, he might get a bunch of lands into play first and then put himself in. If you discarded an Atraxa to the Subtlety or did the Subtlety and then evoked Atraxa and let her die, he might get her back, he might get himself back, enter again, and then get her back. He might ramp you while he's doing it. This just seems like a very powerful big monster to put into play with, it must be said, force backup. There are a number of these sort of spell quellery style cards that they were in your hand when this card resolved, or after you did the looting part of this card resolving, you now can pitch cast them. You can turn Urtai Resurrected, Angswift Savior, the Talion's Throne Guard for an Alchemy one. Those are just force effects now of various kinds. You can use many of these effects. Atraxa, anyone who's played or seen Modern Goryo's Vengeance will know that Atraxa is pretty good at finding Ephemerate to...
Ephemerate herself.
Yeah, to scam out of having to be sacrificed if that is what you're trying to do. But you can also scam these effects with these cards. You can pitch cast Urtai and stifle an evoke trigger. You can pitch cast Urtai and stifle his own evoke trigger. And if it is your own trigger, you will draw a card when you do that.
That's pretty good value, yeah.
You can evoke Aang and just airbend the thing that is about to die to evoke off the stack. Hard cast it for 2 mana next turn.
It's not on this sheet, but Sunderflock, also a pretty good card to just, okay, goodbye, all your creatures, back to your hand.
I put Cyclone Summoner on as sort of a stand-in for that sort of effect. There are a few different ones. You know, Meringue
all permanents, yeah, that one's maybe better, yeah.
Stonehide Ancient. It sort of depends on what you're
doing with the rest of your deck.
Doing and like how bad you're willing to let the card be in general, which one you would choose and how many to play main or board. But yeah, there are a number of these sort of big blue creatures that bounce everything, and that is a powerful effect. You heard it here first.
Are they going to make this cost 4 blue and 2 mons?
I mean, they might do something to it. So, you know, if Mythic Wild cards are a pinch point for you, which is probably only true if you play Brawl, but, you know, you're probably spending other rares on this deck, or possibly spending other rares on this deck. Sin is legal in Alchemy. It is not at all clear to me that this card is even going to be okay in Historic. It is especially unclear to me that this card is going to be okay in Alchemy. And so there is some buyer beware on that. But
it's powerful. It's very good.
It's very powerful. It's also good with other good blue cards. Playing a lot of pitch spells is good with Quantum Riddler, whether you are evoking him or warping him or doing anything else with that. People have also talked about using this as even more of a combo card where you're trying to win immediately by like evoke Hidetsugu and Kairi, ETB Brainstorm, put either Explosive Singularity, which just, you know, tens them and then tens them again to win the game. Or if you want your blue card count to be higher, or want to play a general higher quality card, something like Expropriate as the thing that you're going to spin into. People have talked about this as like Scholar of the Lost Trove combo, which you don't see very much in best of 3, but is very powerful in best of 1. But I tend to think that putting an Atraxa in play with Force backup is going to be good enough.
That seems good, yeah. I mean, there's also that blue-white, you can't be the target of anything.
Yeah, Absolute Virtue. Yeah, you can't put Sarah's Emissary in this because it does have to be blue. Yeah, there are
I hate mentioning stuff like that because I hate that card. But
there are a lot of things that you can do with this. And the things that people can do with this are, I don't want to say, definitively that it's going to break Historic, but I don't want to say definitively that it's not. It may be clearly the most powerful thing to be doing in Historic from now to, whenever it gets changed. But even if it isn't, it is going to be a major player that sets the rules of engagement. So, start considering cards like Vexing Bauble or Test of Talents in your sideboards in terms of how to deal with a card like this. If they're on a graveyard strategy, if they are going to try and use the looting and, have their backup scam plan be something like Life Death, or do like the Sin Atraxa Reanimator rigmarole that I was talking about earlier, think about whether you want Surgical Extraction, which is pretty good against something like Scholar combo, but is pretty bad against the Sin Atraxa stuff because, they target one monster, they extract that, and you just get the other one, and they then have to beat it, and that is perhaps easier said than done.
It's also pretty easy to play this thing on turn 2 with Mox Amber and Tamiyo. If you're playing blue, you want to play Tamiyo anyway. That card's cracked. This card flips Tamiyo, so that's pretty good. Like, I don't know. This seems busted.
Yeah, it flips Tamiyo, and you're very heavily based blue when you play this. You basically can't play a land
that doesn't tap
for blue. Maybe you can play one Plains if you're trying to play Prismatic Vista, which you might be because Sin ramps back Prismatic Vistas. You're probably either very heavily blue, splashing black, or splashing white, I would say.
Probably white. I mean, yeah, the Urtai is definitely good, but like Ephemerate feels like the best card you could play with this, and Ang seems really good too.
Yeah, Ephemerate Ang, like the white version that I envision would play like Ephemerate Ang, and between having all these legends in its payoffs and also, like you said, Tamiyo, I think it probably can support Mox Amber. Mox Amber can also be turned on. If you didn't have a legend, they killed your Tamiyo, your Mox Amber is off, but it is there. You play this thing with your 3 blue lands, evoke Atraxa, she finds Ephemerate.
She is white.
She is she is a white legend. Your Amber taps to
Ephemerate Atraxa. Yeah, busted. Yeah, this card seems really powerful. I mean, honestly, it may be the best thing in Historic, but honestly, okay, whatever. Blue hasn't been that good in Historic for a while, right? I mean, there are some blue decks, but
they unbanned Counterspell, and
that makes this deck better too, probably.
Yeah, all your lands tapping for blue is also a thing that Counterspell wants. I expect this to be a very powerful... Consign is both a pretty good card in Historic because Eldrazi has been so good, and...
shuts off your Evoke.
Yeah, a way to stifle an Evoke trigger. It's not as good as Ephemerating, but...
but you can also do that off of the Atraxa with the Amber. So... yeah, I don't know. I think we've built the deck in our head already. It seems really good. I can't imagine that they let this stay forever, though. I don't know what they're going to do to it. Maybe they'll just add a generic, which may not matter. Like, you're playing a control deck. You can probably wait till turn 4 or turn 3 with the Amber to do this anyway. But yeah, strong card. Okay, we can move on. Probably we've talked about everything under the sun with that one. Next up, we have Infestation for 3/2 black, an elemental incarnation 6/5 with Wither. When this creature enters, conjure a card named Blowfly Infestation onto the battlefield. then put a -1/-1 counter on each creature. It also has Evoke 2 black, pay 2 life. Blowfly Infestation is an old card that is 2 and a black enchantment. You don't have to pay for it in this case. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, if it had a -1/-1 counter on it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. It's a little slow, right? But it is pretty good.
The joke with this thing is that it's going to put the Blowfly Infestation kind of makes its ETB into like a Massacre Girl kind of effect, right? So you put -1/-1 counters on everything, including itself. Even if there aren't other 1 toughness creatures, it itself is going to die to the Evoke, and it will have a -1/-1 counter on it from the ETB trigger, so you'll then get to point that Blowfly Infestation trigger at something that had 2 toughness, it will die. So you expect the 4 mana to at least be a -2/-2 style Wrath like Meathook Massacre. I think on rate, this card is actually very good. I would kind of be comfortable saying that this was the best Black Wrath in Historic compared to Meathook, Damnation, Toxic Deluge, you know, these style of effects, because, you know, Meathook gains you life and leaves a Blood Artist effect behind, and those of you that played Standard with it remember how good that was. This leaves a card that just keeps killing things on the battlefield. It seems like if you have even a little bit of -1/-1 counter synergy near Deadlands in your mana base of your black control-ish deck, Moonshadow if you're a little bit more aggressive, maybe you're playing some sort of persist deck, that all seems really strong to me on a Wrath. It seems like it is hard to come back from, or at least would be. The thing about this card that makes me think it might not be as good is how it lines up against the deck that you care most about having a Wrath against in Historic and in Energy, and specifically the card Ajani Nakadal Pariah. You evoke this thing, it makes the Blowfly Infestation -1/-1, everything. That kills the Cat Warrior. Your Blowfly Infestation trigger goes on the stack, the Ajani Flip trigger goes on the stack
ahead of it, yeah.
And the Ajani flips, and even though you've wrathed the energy board, you are sad. There's also the ways that energy is just generally good against these sorts of effects. They pressure your life total. This involves paying life. They sometimes just get to throw their board at your head with Goblin Bombardment if you go to wrath them a little too late. So I don't know. There are things about this card that I think are really good and really powerful, but I'm skeptical that it's the Wrath that you want.
Ban every red and white card from Modern Horizons 3 from Historic. No,
I would like to see Ajani go.
It just feels out of place. It's so powerful. This card is so good.
You know, similar to the Aquatic Subtlety, if it doesn't end up being broken, it is still going to be a very powerful thing to be doing that is going to define the rules of engagement in Historic for as long as it's legal. And Ajani has been that and done that. This furry asshole is so warping to the format even when energy isn't the best thing to be doing.
Is energy prevalent in Timeless?
Energy's, you know, come and gone. It has never really gone away in Timeless. It didn't do well in the Arena Championship 10, but it seems like that was because the energy players, a lot of them were people who qualified through some other means and for whatever reason, despite being queued for a pro level event, didn't take it seriously enough and just pick up whatever they thought the easiest deck would be. Rather than
Timeless is a hard format. You should play it, yeah.
They were like good players and serious players, but they didn't respect combo enough for what the metagame ended up being. I think there was one energy player that made top 8, so its conversion rate was low, but it probably is better than that showed. And, you know, I've always felt that energy was a pretty tough out for the deck that I like to play in Timeless. It's good. Ajani will have a home in the Timeless farm up state if you send him there.
Right, okay, good.
He will be able to run around and be free in the open space.
Like in Modern, it's 15 to 20% of the meta at any time with the energy deck. So obviously it's for similar reasons that it's the easiest deck to play in Modern, likely, and it's good. It's just like attack with creatures, do things that Magic players know how to do. You don't have to figure out weird, you know, intricate combos or whatever.
Yeah.
Or less intricate combos.
It has played
Titan or
patterns
whatever.
to it and things to learn and ways that you miss points if you're bad.
Oh, I mean,
Like,
so does mono red and standard, right?
Yeah, sure. It's no one wins a lot with anything without being good. Even the stuff that we might scoff at, and it's like, that I would refer to as like counting to 4 or counting to 7 instead of playing Magic. Much as I hate Oops or Eldrazi or whatever else,
or like the standard dice roll simulator, coin flip simulator,
or energy when it becomes too prominent. Like, no one wins with these things without being good, but no one wins at a high percentage at a high level without being good. But I am kind of sick of this card, and I think that Ajani sort of flies under the radar if you're just sort of on the outside looking in at a format, because it's Boros energy. Maybe it's the energy mechanic that's the problem, or maybe it's the energy card. And Amtraptor was probably the best card in the modern deck, but maybe it's Guide of Souls, or they'd just tuned Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride and Gal Discharge down a little bit like they did in the historic nerfs. The deck would be okay. And the deck hasn't always been the best thing to be doing in historic since those nerfs. The energy name, what I was getting to, is kind of a misnomer. The deck is
Ajani.deck.
Yeah, the deck is Ajani.deck. Like, they talked about, Amtraptor doesn't really go in it. No, Ajani doesn't go in anything else. Ajani goes specifically in red-white aggro mid-range deck that plays Goblin Bombardment.
Right.
This is the card that the deck is built around, if you look at what it actually is and what it's actually doing. And this is the card that is setting the rules of engagement for anything that is trying to win a fair game in the formats where it's legal.
Right.
This has been a sort of long tangent.
We need a great deal of curation for historic, realistically. And so I don't know how many bans it has to be, but probably a lot. There's Temple, Ajani. I don't know what else is really holding things back, but maybe something out of Val Combo. I don't know.
Pre-subtlety world, pre-aquatic subtlety, but post-Sorin nerf world, I would be kind of okay if it were just like Temple and Ajani. I think Val is probably too polarizing and should just be changed. Val, if you are trying to play Magic instead of counting to 7, you can beat the piss out of Val if you want. It's like
doable.
any other creature combo deck. If I got my exact wish list, you'd probably staple a few of the other ramp cards that I hate. Kozilek's Command, fuck that card.
Yeah, that card doesn't need to be. If historic is not going to be modern, then you have to not make it modern, right? But all right.
If they did heavily curate historic and we got to the point where, a card like Infestation is the best wrath in the format, it's not like I liked Sunfall when it was legal in standard. I might be complaining about this in a few months if they do start curating historic. Or maybe I will just be still evoking Atraxas at that time because they probably won't have curated it at all.
Yeah, that's the most likely outcome. Okay, let's go to our next card. We've talked for a long time on those two.
Let's talk more about cards that are completely
Unplayable.
dead on arrival because Ajani Nakatl Pariah is in the format.
So this one is called Kithkin Brinefarer for 1 and green and a white. It is a Kithkin Warrior Bard 3/3. Whenever a Kithkin is put into your hand from your library, conjure a duplicate of that card into your hand. Whenever you attack, Kithkin creature cards in your hand perpetually get +1/+1. And that's not attack with this creature, that's just attack.
Yes. If you had a creature from turn 2, played this thing, you attack. If it's a Kinscare Sentry, you can actually stack this on top, so it gets the +1/+1 before you put it into play. That's kind of neat. But it is good with a number of Kithkin cards. Any sort of draw or seek or tutor or thing that puts card from your deck into your hand, like Eclipsed Kithkin does, you look at the top 3 cards, you don't exile them or anything, and top 4 cards, it's like, oh, you reveal a Kithkin, put it in your hand. Faceless Agent is a Kithkin. ETB, seek a Kithkin. You get it, you duplicate it. Cool. There are Kithkin cards like the Banneret, or maybe Bridget if she lives, or 3-Tree City, whatever. There are ways that you can produce a lot of mana to throw a lot of cards into play if you want. Card that used to be really a big deal in creature decks in historic, not a Kithkin, but Inquisitor Captain, sort of a Alchemy variant Bloodbraid Elf from, A22. Alchemy cards are now like 5 years old. That's 4 years. This was one of the first ones. But he ETBs, you seek, if you meet a condition that creature decks meet, you seek 2 creatures with mana value 3 or less, and when you seek, they do go to your hand. So even as he puts 1 into play and the other back into your library, the Brinefarer will seek see both of them go into your hand and will conjure duplicates.
Wow.
Like, this is popping off pretty hard. It is, but...
You're talking about a 3-drop into a 4-drop.
Yeah, a 3-drop
to pop
into a
off
4-drop.
pretty hard by having cards in hand, not on the battlefield.
These cocoa-y creature decks that just get ripped to shreds by Goblin Bombardment and have the problems that we talk about all the time, where their individual card quality is much worse than the Boros energy cards, and their kindred synergies are worse than the synergies between the Boros energy cards.
Yeah, it's just sort of the same problem. I mean, Kithkin aren't really even doing numbers in standard or anything. I don't think I've even seen one on the ladder.
I mean, look at all these cards that you have to put around this card. We're talking about playing a pretty good draft uncommon, but that's what it is. We're talking about cards like Faceless Agent, who, you know, is okay.
It's better in this deck, but you're still playing 3 mana for a 2/2. Yeah, you get 2 cards in your hand, but
talking about, you know,
whatever.
And a collection of like standard level 1-drops and 2-drops to get to critical mass.
It's just like control players dying with a million cards in their hand, right? Like, yeah, you drew a bunch of cards, but you're dead, so it doesn't matter.
Here's kind of a silly memey card. Limitless Rekindling. 3 red, Kindred Sorcery Elemental. Conjure a random instant or sorcery card from the Lorwyn Eclipsed expansion into exile. Until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Storm. So, this is your big silly double your storm count kind of card. It's similar to a card like Galvanic Relay, which is actually on Arena. Didn't know that. Or Storm of Memories, another Avatar Eternal card that we missed that has gotten some buzz in Legacy. And those two are, I think, pretty much just better than this because you're getting spells that you actually want instead of draft level removal that you're hoping has a target or like other weird draft cards.
Yeah, what are you even hoping to hit? The 7-drop that lets you look at your opponent's library and find 5 CMC? Or like, what's the best hit on this? I don't even know. Like,
yeah,
Winnowing or something?
Green Harvest is kind of fine. Tweeze is kind of fine. Like, but there are hits that are pretty not fine. Like, you know, if you hit removal and your opponent doesn't have creatures in play, then...
Nice seer, yeah.
You can't use it to up your storm count. It would surprise me if this were the thing to be doing as this sort of card in Ruby Storm. The one thing that it does do, that Storm of Memories sort of works the opposite way, and Galvanic Relay also does, but you need to continue spending mana, although it costs 2 less in the first place, so maybe you just get to keep doing that. The one thing that it does do is it puts all these cards that you just cast for free into your graveyard, and Underworld Breach is legal and historic and timeless, so that might matter.
Yeah, I mean, it is an elemental spell as well, so there is, like, in standard right now, there's a lot of, like, Ashling plus the guy who Flame Breather or whatever, I forget what he's called, but he...
Flame Braider, yeah.
Flame Braider, yeah. He taps for 2, so, like, it's hard to storm into all that in elementals, but, I mean, maybe you're evoking things and I don't know.
You know, Kindred as
cheating out stuff to get some storm count.
Kindred as a type also could matter if you're on a Ruby Storm build that plays Dragon Ray's Channeler. Like,
yeah, sure.
But I suspect this card is silly and
mostly bad,
but it's at least interesting enough to talk about.
Another card that also can benefit from the elemental ramp stuff, Salacinder and Soot Rascals.
Soot.
The Soot, probably, yeah. Salacinder and Soot. Rascals. Okay, I like the name. 2 and an is it for a 3/3 elemental legend. Prowess Trample. Whenever he enters, or they enter, I suppose, as it's 2, or you cast an elemental spell, choose 1, conjure a card named Rite of Flame into your hand, or conjure a card named Take Inventory into your hand. So, Rite of Flame is 1 red, add 2 red, then an additional red for each Rite of Flame in your graveyard, and Take Inventory, they're both sorceries, is 1 and a blue. Draw a card, then draw cards equal to the number of cards named Take Inventory in your graveyard. So, sort of like, you keep doing this stuff, or at least I think Rite of Flame is usually the right call, unless you need cards, I suppose, but...
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of at its baseline just like the draft common that you see in every format, where it's kind of undersized as a 4-drop, but it makes a clue or makes a treasure. This is at least modal. It does one or the other. And this is the mythic rare upgrade where it's actually kind of good in limited instead of filler level. And it's still not really a constructed playable card outside of combo, I don't think, but it does have some combos. Rite of Flame is banned in Modern and not on Arena, so you're only getting extra Rite of Flames text by triggering this a bunch and making more Rite of Flames. You can put Take Inventory in your deck if you want to. You are allowed. It is on Arena. But you can do this maybe with some Elementals stuff. You have Ashling and maybe Flame Braider as ways to sort of get from 2 to 4 and, you know, do some interesting things. This does go infinite with Grinning Ingus. We did it. We found a thing that goes infinite with Grinning Ingus. But since they nerfed Goblin Trap Finder and Racketeer Boss, this might be the best existing thing that goes infinite with Grinning Ingus. There's also Bergi, but this has the advantages of, one, it has Prowess and Trample, so each time you
Rite of Flame.
Yeah, each time you Rite of Flame off the Grinning Ingus mana to be able to recast the Grinning Ingus and, you know, keep having mana to keep doing it, it makes your trampling body that you're going to maybe have to use to win the game when all is said and done bigger. It is also mana positive, which Birgi is not on her own.
So maybe you play this one and the last one, right? And that's how you win. Probably not.
It has that modality. It has these advantages. You would probably play both if you were really trying to do Ingus combos. But yeah, it is still a 4-mana 3/3. It still seems to me like many of the cards that we're not going to talk about in this review because it is just giving Jeremy more editing work for no reason. This is mostly a Brawl Commander, but it is part of a 2-card infinite combo, so we kind of got to talk about it.
It's slow, for sure, but it's kind of fun. And the Trample, yeah, that kind of, like, if you can do the Ingus thing, it just wins by itself, which is good. So that's nice to have your little two-card combo.
Speaking of cards that go infinite with Grinning Ingus, this one doesn't quite, but it's pretty close to doing so. 10 to the Kiln. 1 and a red for an enchantment. When it enters, all non-elemental instant and sorcery cards you own perpetually become elemental kindreds in addition to their other types. That's a line of text. Whenever you cast an elemental spell, which, remember, includes all your instants and sorceries, at least the ones that you owned at the time that it's entered and didn't, you know, conjure into your hand with something like Soot after the fact, the last card we talked about. Then if it has 3 or more flame counters on it, remove them, conjure a Flame Braider onto the battlefield with haste, and sack it at the beginning of the end step. Flame Braider is the double dork for elementals, which, remember, includes all your instants and sorceries. So basically every 3rd spell, you get 2 mana back. Like I said, this is not quite enough to go infinite with Grinning Ingus. Grinning Dingus. Grinning Ignis. You start from 5 mana, you cast the Ingus and bounce it 3 times. You make a Flame Braider, which can start doing it again, but is not quite enough to cast it another 3 times. Since you remove the counters every 3, it's not infinite, but it's pretty close. Like, if you can fit some Manamorphoses or whatever in there, you might be able to get a Storm count up. So the Flame Braider also does stick around until the end steps, and maybe like Hidden Strings type cards if you want more redundancy of untap bullshit in Lotus Field. But yeah, it's a combo card, a combo Storm style card. It's a pretty powerful one. I couldn't find an actual infinite with it, but one might exist. Here's another kind of weird one. Current Curriculum, another 2-mana enchantment. The first Merfolk spell you cast each turn has Convoke. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, conjure a card named Stonybrook Schoolmaster onto the battlefield tap. Stonybrook Schoolmaster is an old school Lorwyn Shadowmoor card. I should know what that set symbol is, but I don't. I want to say that's Eventide, but I'm probably wrong. Whenever it becomes tapped, you make a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token. So, like, maybe you're trying to do this on just regular Merfolk stuff. You get 1 Merfolk, probably, basically, for free, and then you get Conjure a Schoolmaster, who might make you more tokens and help you convoke harder, and just regular Merfolk stuff. Most of the Merfolk support in Historic is Simic, but mana's pretty good. You can probably be Bant if you want to, if you're playing Merfolk. Like, there a couple good flash merfolks. Maybe you're just trying to do convoke stuff. There is actually a really big dumb merfolk that is in Historic. Not that you would know unless you did what I did and Scryfall searched every merfolk that's legal in the format, but there is in fact a big dumb merfolk commander that cares about having lots of creatures in play and is pretty good if you can convoke it out. That's the Lost Caverns of Ixalan face commander Tishana, Voice of Thunder. So there's stuff with this card. Small creature decks are in a rough place in Historic. It does a thing.
Yeah, there's a considerable amount of lords at 2 for merfolk in Historic, so that might help a little bit, but...
Helps you die to Goblin Bombardment less, which is a big problem of small creature decks.
But yeah, this card's cool for sure. I mean, the merfolk thing is a tap thing. Tishana's Tidebinder, one of the best merfolk, and yeah...
Also has flash.
So you get to get it on both turns.
Still untapped. You know, including maybe this Swillmaster that you just conjured, but, you know, that and 2 other things, one of which is blue, you'd have a free Tidebinder on your opponent's turn. That's powerful.
Yeah, so that's good stuff. And I mean, yeah, it's only on your end step if you have 2 tap creatures, but in Merfolk you always have 2 tap creatures, so, I mean, you get a Stony Brook every turn, so that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, Tidebinder's a little expensive for Historic, but it hits a lot.
It's less expensive with Convoke.
Yes, that's the thing. If you can convoke it out...
ETBs are everything,
well,
so...
like cast triggers are a
or cast triggers
in
Historic too, yeah.
Historic, because Eldrazi are stupid. Tidebinder interacts pretty favorably with a lot of things in the format. So, yeah, I think the power level's there on this card. We will see.
It's tough for Merfolk to work as a deck, more than the card's ability to be good, yeah. Next we have Reflective Rimekin, 2 and a blue, Elemental Wizard 3/2. When this creature enters, you get a one-time boon with when you cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana 3 or less, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. So that's kind of fun. Good for Storm and Ephemerate. Yeah, I mean, it's a wizard. That's the most powerful type in Magic, other than Cat, so... I don't know. Seems
yeah,
good.
I mean, it's a blue wizard that cares about instants or sorcery with its mana value 3 or less. Hit my knee with a staff. The Darkfire will not avail you, Flame of Udun. It's a boon, so, you know, this thing enters, you're going to get this. You know, if it dies, you might not have a wizard in play, but you can usually solve that problem. And if it doesn't die, you do have a wizard in play, which creates a huge problem for your opponent. It's a little expensive, and the body's a little shitty for, like, Burn Prowess style wizards, but, like, bigger, more controlling version, this like the Chorus control version, you know, if you ephemerate this thing, that uses the boon, but then you get another one, and you can't ephemerate twice onto the same thing copying it, because the first one will blink it away and then the copy will fizzle, but you can blink 2 things, get more boons. It is just an enters trigger, it's not an if you cast it. There's stuff going on with this card that is balanced by the fact that it is a 3 mana 3/2 maybe, but like it is a powerful option to consider.
Yeah, I think that you can't play this in the normal Wizards deck. You need everything to cost 1 or 2, but apart from that, it's a good card, and I'm sure that there are busted cards, instant or sorceries with mana value 3 or less. All right, next we have Blighted Nightmare for 2 and a black enchantment. When this enchantment enters, creature cards in your graveyard perpetually get +1/+1. Blight X. Return this enchantment to its owner's hand. Return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. X can't be greater than the greatest toughness among creatures you control. Activate only as a sorcery.
So this is a Recurring Nightmare variant. We already have a Recurring Nightmare variant in Historic in Chthonian Nightmare from Modern Horizons 3. Chthonian Nightmare costs 1 less mana and is therefore better. Subscribe to Hooting Mandrills for this
pro tips.
high-level analysis. But this is powerful, right? Each time you recur this nightmare, the creature cards in your graveyard get bigger and chunkier. This is where I'd put a Slitherhead if I had one. But there is stuff you can do with this. The decks that have played Chthonian Nightmare in Historic and Timeless have generally either been Mardu Energy variants or Jetstorm variants. And in Energy, I think this is dead on arrival. Lurrus non-compliant. don't have to go too much into that. Jetstorm is a little weirder because Chthonian Nightmare costing 2 versus 3 is in fact better, but costing 1 versus 2 also better, and so you can't just use this with a discount of 1 mana to be able to keep paying this off of a treasure from a Shambling Ghast or a
Freebooter.
Yeah, greedy freebooter. So it's a little awkward as redundancy to Chthonian Nightmare in a deck like that, although it is likely still good enough that you play some number in Jetstorm, I think. There's also Priest of Gix, who does make enough mana, but he has, at a baseline, a sad little butt. He is just a 2/1. So you need some source of booty somewhere to be able to loop Priests of Gix with this. Recurring Nightmare, powerful card. Powerful iconic card. It is banned in Commander, I think. I think it's still legal in Legacy, but it's not legal anywhere else, or it's because it's reserved list. You know, it's powerful, and there are good reanimates at 2 and 3 mana in Historic already, but, you know, if you have a source of a lot of ass, you know, we just put the vanilla 0/8 from Aether Drift on, but there are actual good cards that you can put in your deck.
With large toughness, yeah.
Large toughnesses as well. Like, you can potentially get pretty big things back. This is better than Necromancy. If it does the thing you want, it's better than Necromancy. It also just is a source of a lot of -1/-1 counters. You know, maybe you put them on the Ozolith and then Ozolith them onto your opponent's stuff. Maybe you're doing weird stuff with Infestation.
If they ever print Dryad Arbor, could you do an infinite loop with Bloodghast Dryad Arbor? You'd have to cast this card, so you don't have enough mana to do it. Yeah, so no, but...
You're right, it doesn't create mana on its own unless you have, like, 2 Cubs and a Tyvar. That's
a lot of work.
In which case
you could win it any other way.
Or we will actually get to a card that does Dryad Arbor-like things later in this, and does give haste, so you wouldn't need the Tyvar, but there might be some weird combo there as well, yeah. Right. This is a weird one. Gilt-Leaf Alchemist. This is a Alchemy, Llanowar Elves variant. It's a 1/1 with Death Touch. Jeremy is stroking his beard at that. Tap, conjure a card named Forest onto the battlefield. Activate only if there are 2 or more elf cards in your graveyard. So, conjuring a forest is largely much, much better than producing 1 mana. Only if there are 2 or more elf cards in your graveyard is kind of stinky. There is also in this Alchemy set, Elvish Elegy, a sort of Malevolent Rumble variant that's a Kindred Elf, and Mills 3 gets a thing back. Might be able to turn this on. Nissa is an elf. If you're a graveyardy deck, that means maybe Soul Cauldron does something. I say that making a forest is mostly better. It's a mana every turn forever. It does mean that this card doesn't work with Badger Mole or Leyline of Abundance, which might just mean it doesn't have a home in Historic, but I don't know. Jeremy, you love 1/1 Death Touchers. You love Llanowar Elves. What do you think of this thing?
I was trying to think if it was possible to play this in some kind of In the Fangbearer decks. I've just seen this for the first time now, so I have not thought of it very hard, but I don't know. It seems bad. There is that other elf with Death Touch that gains life or whatever from the set proper.
Right, the Soul Warden.
Soul Warden / 1/1 Death Toucher. But I'd have to look through other Death Touchers to...
Glissa's an elf.
Glissa is a sick one. Folks? I used to play the shit out of Glissa in my Fin the Fangbearer deck, even in the Historic one that was very bad a long time ago. Yeah, maybe. If Glissa's an elf, that certainly helps. She's a very good one. There's actually, I think there's like a Taunting Elf that's an elf on the Arena client that's like 1 black and a green, 1/1 Death Touch. All creatures able to block this creature must do so. Something like that. So maybe there's Finn Death Touch elves. I mean,
Finn is unfortunately a human.
I know, but he's good. I don't know what else to do with
Yeah,
this card.
it's
I mean, like, I guess you could play
yeah.
more expensive elves because you get to play this card. So, like, you're not like, I only get to play 1 and 2 mana cards. You can probably play 3 mana spells easier because this ramps you forever.
In, like, honest elves without a graveyard aspect, like,
Well, yeah, you'd have to
already
play a
have
graveyard. You have to
Archdruid
play a graveyard
and
aspect.
well, like, but like the regular elves already have a bunch of mana elves and Priest of Titania and
Like from an elf perspective, yeah, this card's garbage. Yeah, I wouldn't play this.
It's weird and the effect is sort of powerful, but yeah, finding homes for it is a little awkward. Yeah, another one probably just worse than other comparable options, but sort of interesting. Opulent Clomper, 1 and a green, star. It has Vivid, its power and toughness are equal to the number of colors among permanents you control. And at the beginning of your upkeep, God, this card sucks. If this creature isn't all colors, it becomes a random color that it isn't in addition to its other colors. So, you know, this is a domain payoff style creature like Territorial Kavu or Neshoba Brawler, except you actually need the ley line for it to be that big, that fast. There's no Scion of Draco on Arena. This is probably just worse than proximate alternatives.
Yeah, I think you've got enough things if you're really a domain gamer and you want to be playing Leyline. I just don't think this helps much. Maybe for Alchemy, domain.
So here's kind of a wild one. Wildgrove Summoner. 2 and 3 green. Is that Nykthos Shrine to Nyx's music, I hear? I actually don't know. We'll talk a little bit about that, but it is a 4/7 Treefolk Druid. When it enters, forest cards in your hand and library perpetually become 3/4 Treefolk creatures in addition to their other types and gain reach and haste. When this creature dies, seek 2 forest cards and put them onto the battlefield. 3/4, I mean, it has haste because, you wouldn't want this to ever have a downside. You wouldn't want it to be that, you
can't even tap your land.
Your land is summoning sick now. When you got a 3/4 just for playing a land is so big. It's so big, it has reach. You can't fly over it. I don't know for sure that this thing is better than Cavalier of Thorns. It itself doesn't have reach. You know, Green Devotion players, if one of you ever learns to read, sound off in the comments and let us know if you think this card is better than Cavalier of Thorns or not. But, you know, Exploration's legal in this format.
I mean, yeah, and like all sorts of, you can play 2 land things other than that too. I mean, or just like landfall type cards. There's a million things that seek 2 forests, you know, like
Scape Shift. You don't even need to play mountains for Valakut. You just get this thing down somewhere along the line, and then just any 7 lands that you scape shift is 21 hasty power.
That seems powerful.
Once you've turned all
Even if they remove this guy, they're perpetually done. So, like...
And when they remove this guy, if they remove him by killing him, he seeks 2 forests. That's like 6/8 across 2 bodies that he just puts in.
Deadly Disputum yourself, coward.
I mean, Flare of Cultivation is banned in Historic, but like it's not really good enough for Timeless to shove a 5-drop and sack it to accomplish this. Like Flare of Cultivation with this would put like 9 power and 12 toughness across 3 bodies into play. Once you have resolved the CTB trigger, you can do the Dryad Arbor trick and just Grain Sun Zenith for 1, get a 3/4 with haste and reach and taps for mana. Is that good? That's...
I don't know. I think the card seems good. I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a Dryad Arbor-like thing. Obviously, the best thing about Dryad Arbor is being able to ramp on turn 1 with Green Sun Zenith.
Yeah, this doesn't solve any of your turn 1 problems. You have to
there's good mana nowadays.
Yeah, you have to do regular mana ramp things. That has always been what's holding Green Devotion back.
Right, yeah. If only they could get enough mana, then they'd be doing great. Yeah, this card's probably a menace. I like the ethos of it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's also, we talked about doing weird Dryad Arbory loops with the Recurring Nightmare card. Like, this thing has 7 toughness and a good death trigger. Like, that might be a reasonable way to sacrifice this thing.
Right, that's true, yeah.
Like, this card seems like it does a lot, and...
It could return pretty much anything with 7, yeah. I mean, seems good to me. I don't know.
Yeah, less crazy, but still, like, enough that you look at it and are like, this might be good, is Topsoil Turner. Uncommon tree folk. 2/4 with reach for 3. When it enters, each forest and tree folk card in your hand perpetually gains add green. So, like, you have to have a lot of lands in hand for this to be worth it. Land tax is banned in Historic. Otherwise, that might sort of be a thing. You just gotta fistful of forests, you've got explorations and land taxes and this thing, and make a lot of mana, probably do Enchantress's Presence or whatever, win somehow. But yeah, I don't know exactly what this goes in, but...
Alchemy Tree Folk, which isn't very good, but...
But again, it is a powerful effect that there's sort of a continuous theme of these, that the defining feature of Historic is that the card pool is so goddamn weird, and keeping a card like this in your memory banks might be the thing for some deck someday.
Yeah, and shout out to Omar Ryan. This art is sick. I love the new Tree Folk. Sun Dappled, Celebrant, sick. This one, absolutely sick art.
Yeah, sick art on an Alchemy card, no less. But here's another one that I think is very, very good. Perennial Gravewarden. Black and a green, Elf Warlock, 1/1 with Menace. When it enters, it perpetually gains +1/+1. So it resolves one time, it's a 2/2. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature entered and a creature died this turn, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So Morbid is one of those abilities that, you know, if you watch limited set reviews, remember, Morbid is never quite as good as you think it is. It's not triggering every turn. And that's true, usually in limited, but it is...
Not true in constructed.
not at nearly as true in constructed. If you want to cause something to enter and something to die on any given turn, you probably can. Any, you know, Chthonian Nightmare or the Blighted Nightmare, any of those effects, make a creature die, make a creature enter. Birthing Ritual makes a creature die, makes a creature enter. White of the Reliquary was the first card I put on this because I was like, oh, you're gonna sack a Bloodghast and get a land and get the Bloodghast back, and that will trigger this on the end step. That does work. Or, you know, sacking any creature, sacking this thing, go get a Colony Garden, that made a creature enter. You can get it back on the end step. But there are just so many things. Pyrogoyf causes a creature to enter and probably causes a creature to die. You didn't have to control the creature that died. Jarsoul flashing back Fatal Push is a creature that entered and probably a creature that died. You play something that kills an opponent's thing like Jarsoul or Pyrogoyf, or you play Malevolent Rumble.
Sack the spawn,
yeah, you play Malevolent Rumble, you mill over this thing, you sack the spawn to cast something else. A creature entered and a creature died. It is so easy to trigger this thing. It gets bigger every time you...
This card's sick, yeah.
Every time you do so, and, you know, it comes in tapped, but, you know, once it untaps, it locks. It has Menace. This is a much scarier thing to be putting back into play than a Bloodghast or a Forsaken Miner or what have you. You know, it pays off cards like Insidious Roots, Oasis of Renewal, etc.
Yeah, this is a good card. I don't know any other applications for it, really, but, I mean, it seems good with that one we were talking about earlier, the Blighted Nightmare.
Yeah, Neoform. You Neoform this thing into an Oculus.
A creature has left and entered. Yeah, Neoform's busted with this. Yeah, that's actually a really fun idea.
But, like, it's also just a good fair card. I think that you could just play this in Jund-Goyfs and have it be pretty good. You know, there is Eldrazi removal exiles a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they're going to get rid of it. They're probably going to get rid of it once and for all. It may not be good in matchup, but a lot of the other removal in Historic kills. All of Energy's removal kills. They get one window with a Goblin Bombardment to kill it, and, you know, if they do, it just comes back and becomes a 2/2 on the end step. That only matters if you needed it to block.
And it's on enter, so, like, there's other shenanigans that can be, you know, like, obviously it does it by itself with the graveyard thing, but, you know, there are instances where you could maybe play this in, like, an Ephemerate deck and just, like, make it huge. Like, I don't know, like, that's not the best strategy since it has all this other text, obviously, but, you know, if you're already in, like, an Abzan Ephemerate deck of some kind, I don't know what that deck is, but, like, just, like, enter abilities, it's just an enter ability. Like, yes, it does get to do it by itself, but you can...
But like, and it's such a good fair card that you still consider it in shells like that.
Yeah.
Look behind the curtain. We recorded the earlier half or so of these as they became available, so I was expecting, like, okay, I've
already put all the cards in.
I'm like all in on Aquatic Subtlety. I'm gonna brew 3 different versions of this deck and be just like focused on this, but like I am so about this card.
I love this card, yeah.
I feel like I've got to clear my schedule to play more Historic.
Doesn't die to shoot the sheriff in Alchemy. Very relevant.
That's true. It doesn't. Is Thunder Junction still in?
I don't know.
We have a land, and it's a pretty good one that will mostly be used for evil. Echoing Cavern. It's a land cave. When it enters, you choose a creature type. You can add colorless or add a mana of any color to cast spells of the chosen type. So it doesn't push through counters, but it is a cavern. And then it has Exhaust for 4 and tap this, seek a card of the chosen type. So, you know, as Kindred lands go, this is a pretty good one. It's a sink that draws a card if you're flooding. I don't know if that's ever going to be enough to get you back into a game with these sorts of decks in a format like Historic, but it is a thing that you can do in... It is an Exhaust ability. Our boy, Afterburner Expert, has never done anything, even in Standard, but he sure does come back if you exhaust this land.
Right, yeah, in your Goblins Exhaust deck.
I think the main thing that this does, at least right away, is that Eldrazi decks find it off Sowing Micah Spawn, because it would be just terrible if that deck ever ran out of gas or had to play a game slightly differently or make a decision of any kind. So if your hand's a little light, you Sowing Micah Spawn, you find this, you exhaust it because you have mana lying around to do stuff like that, then you have action for the future. You know, whoopee.
Why is Sowing Micah Spawn not banned in Historic?
I don't...
Isn't, like, Stone Rain banned in Historic?
Stone Rain's legal.
Oh, okay.
Breading Seas is banned in Historic. But, you know, I think that Sowing Micah Spawn, at least in the context of Temple and Lab existing, probably does violate what is supposed to be the format identity of Historic.
But Eldrazi don't count for that.
Yes, you know, someone at Wizards is engaged in Congress with Eldritch Horrors, and, like, we all have to learn about it every time we queue into this format. We all have to hear all about it. Sowing Micah Spawn is, like, the 5th most egregious card in the Eldrazi deck.
Of course.
But you are right that it is annoying that it's around.
It's much better in Strip Mine or Wasteland formats, obviously.
Yeah.
But, like, at the same time, the card is super stupid, and I mean, you could say that about any Eldrazi card ever printed, probably. But here we are talking about it again. But yeah, no, this card, you know, at this point, you can probably play all Rainbow lands in your Kindred decks at this point if you want, but that's probably not the best idea. You probably need to play a couple of non-Kindred creatures, but the fixing is good.
The fixing's good, and this is a good fixer land.
It's not horrible in slivers. You have infinite mana all the time, so, like, if you're underneath Tameo, a flipped Tameo, and, like, I can't win, then you could go search out your deals 1 damage sliver. So that's kind of fun.
Well, it's Seek, so it's going to be
it's random. Oh, so this sucks. Yeah, never mind.
I mean, it's card draw. It might hit a Lord. It might do...
Right. There's not enough Lords to beat Tameos, unfortunately, and so the -1 is really the only way. But
that is true. Tameo is... I usually talk about a Johnny in Historic as
Tameo's
being
pretty
like
bad
that thing
too,
that
yeah.
beats the piss out of small creature decks. Tameo sure does do that too. But yeah, so, you know, current Historic, this is mostly a tool to be used for evil, but
that's because the only thing you can be doing is evil.
yes, you know, and you're just like not comfortable about it because it's Historic. You expect it to not be like Timeless, where you're just going in with the expectation that I'm going to try to do the worst thing possible to you, you're going to try to do the worst thing possible to me, and it might happen to both of us, but
we've agreed upon the conditions that we're both doing horrible things. Historic is also that at this point, but with shitty land. Unless you're Eldrazi. Then you get the best lands that you could want. I guess they don't have Ancient Tomb. Boo-hoo.
Historic is the one that you expect to be the Brewers format, and, you know, it's not. But there are a lot of cool things that make me want to do a lot of brewing in Historic. This is a very powerful set. For Historic, I think most of this is not really interesting in Timeless.
You got to be really busted to break into Timeless, so, I mean, it makes sense.
And even the really busted thing, Aquatic Subtlety.
It's a little slow for blue. If it was black, yeah. But, like, getting 3 blue mana is...
In a 4-strip mine.
In a 4-strip mine format is tough, so...
It's also not clear to me that it is easier to build your deck in such a way that Resolving, compared to things that do cast off Dark Ritual and Ancient Tomb, like Show and Tell, Necropotence, Sorin, those sorts of cards, make it a little questionable there. player, but there are a lot of really cool historic cards in this set. I probably spent 30 minutes of what is probably an hour runtime complaining about what you can't do in the format, but I'm excited for many of the things that these cards can do, and as excited for the historic format as I've been in quite some time.
Right, well, we're not going to be unrealistic with it. You know, when we're talking about cards, we might be hopeful for a card, but we're also going to understand if it's not playable or not, I think. I'm not going to, like, just look at every card with rose-colored glasses. You know, we're both free-to-play players. We don't just have every card that comes out every time, so I think it's fine.
So there's also a couple cards of note coming to Arena through a Grub Brawl precon. First of which is one that I had hoped they would reprint into the main set, but no such luck. So standard players, no Tarfire for you, but in historic, you can play it maybe even in timeless. It is shock, but it's an extra type for delirium. That's basically all it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would have been cool to put it in standard because the delirium deck has been struggling since essentially Badger Mole Cub came along. So I don't think that this would save the day or anything, but another 2-type card helps you get to delirium faster.
My first Cub draft didn't have very much of the actual delirium aspects, but it was sort of in between what the Cub decks eventually became and the breakout delirium decks. You know, you can play Ruby and she taps immediately for
2 mana.
2 mana, so she pays for herself. You can break out for 2 mana, which is the magic number for how all the Badger Mole math works. It was kind of cool, but
yeah, I like that idea.
Playing FOMO, that is a delirium payoff that's real and good enough even for historic. Dragon Ridge Channeler still nerfed in historic. There's only a 3/1 when you are delirious.
Is that necessary?
Probably not.
Same thing with Omnath. Probably just return those cards. Honestly, yeah. Anything. Anything that's nerfed. Miskimbu could probably be normal. I don't know. Maybe not.
Minskenbu and Orcish Bowmasters are the closest to maybe
the ring. Yeah, maybe those 3 are fine.
And the ring, yeah. But, Dragon's Ridge Channeler is normal in timeless. You sometimes see people play Tarfire in modern to get extra types. So, even in timeless where Bolt is legal, this card's not outside the realm of possibilities. It's a pretty simple card, but it does a thing. Sort of a less simple and probably mostly less good, but interesting version. Also coming in the Alchemy set, Craterous Stomp. 1 in a red, deals 3 damage to target creature, doesn't go face, doesn't hit planeswalkers. Each other creature that player controls becomes a coward in addition to its other types and gains. This creature can't block giants or warriors. So again, 2 types for delirium. If you are, somehow giants or warriors, and there are warriors that aren't embarrassing to play in your deck. Both Ajani and the token he make are warriors.
Busted. You want them to block.
Them to block is kind of the thing. But someone showed kind of a meme Coco Warriors list, and it honestly looked less bad than you might imagine. So probably no, but kind of maybe. Bone Crusher Giant is not a warrior, but is a giant and good.
Does hit off
decks.
Coco, yeah.
And so, if you're in that sort of space, especially if you care about delirium, maybe. Probably not. This one used to be a big deal in Modern when Birthing Pod was legal, and Modern Horizons was just a glimmer in Daddy Has Rose Eye. Murderous Redcap is 2 and 2 hybrid Rakdos mana for a 2/2, but when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to any target, and then it has Resist. So, it comes in, it deals 2 to something. When it dies, it comes back as a 1/1, deals 1 to something. This might figure into any sort of birthing ritual, Chthonian Nightmare, those sorts of things that are basically just better birthing pods that exist in the format. It is also a card that has the advantage over Putrid Goblin, that in some sort of, Grumgully or First Day of Class Persist combo, just doing the loop with this thing causes your opponent to die, but probably not a major player in 2026.
No, it seems hard to make it work, but yeah, at infinite combos, probably Brawl, people will do this sort of nonsense. All right, up next we have Boggart Harbinger for 2 and a black. It's a Goblin Shaman, 2/1. When Boggart Harbinger comes into play, you may search your library for a Goblin card, reveal it, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it.
So Boggart Harbinger goes infinite as part of an infinite Goblins combo. If you have a conspicuous Snoop that doesn't have Summoning Sickness in play, you play Harbinger, you put Kiki on top of your deck, the Snoop can copy itself yourself and make another Snoop, which also has the Kiki ability, and because none of them are legendary, you make infinity of them on the opponent's end step, untap, and kill them. This used to be a thing in Modern, the sort of the same energy problem that a lot of small creature decks have now, but it is a combo that you have access to if you are a Goblins gamer. Also, Auntie's Hovel is coming. If you are a Goblins deck, it's Badlands. And if you are a Goblins deck, you might be interested in being Jund for access to cards like, you know, Grumgully or the
Putrid Goblin.
Grumgully for the Putrid Goblin combo, or Ignoble Hierarch or Birthing Ritual, or some of the Jund Goblin's commandery cards. So making your mana base a little bit better is not nothing.
No, I mean, always lands are helpful, but yeah, pretty serious tax on this one. You gotta be a Goblins deck.
Yeah, I mean, it is only for Goblins decks, but the third color is not free in Historic. This does not tap for green. The reason why I mentioned green is third color is not free in Historic. It's a non-fetch format, and having lands that make your mana a little better when you're in 3 colors is notable.
Yeah, I mean, Goblin lands are pretty good at this point with Cavern, Secluded. You know, if it depends how much other non-Goblins you need to play to make your stuff work.
I'm more concerned about casting cards like Birthing Ritual, Cabaretti Revels. Yeah, like
that sort of stuff.
Birthing Ritual, Cabaretti Revels type of stuff that make you potentially want to be in 3 colors, but can't be cast off of a bunch of Kindred lands.
Yes. Cool. I mean, all seems good. Nothing world-shattering from these Goblin cards, but we like Goblins, so we're happy to see more on the client. I like the Historic card. I like looking at them, too, even if I don't ever actually queue up into any of this stuff. I think it's fun to see the Alchemy stuff. A lot of people hate Alchemy stuff, and like, I get where you're coming from. The Alchemy format itself is a disease and should just be cleared from the client, and we should actually curate Historic, but you know, that's fine. But more importantly, they should put Arena Pauper on the client. It's coming today at 5 o'clock, so I'll be there. I'll be playing some, but bring it to the ladder, please.
Yeah, that's another exciting thing to be doing, as well as brewing in Historic. You get to brew in Pauper for 3 whole days.
I'll be doing it. So, but I'm not drafted. I'm not playing Constructed. I'm playing Pauper. So
they would need to curate it a bit.
Oh yeah, I'm bringing a busted deck. My first deck I want to try. I'm playing Cranial Ram. I'm playing Deadly Dispute. I'm playing All That Glitters if they let me. I don't care. I at least want to try one deck that's unacceptable. I'll play some other. Maybe I'll play Simic Terror to lose a few games after I go in. But yeah, Pauper's sick. But anyway, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to Hooting Mandrills. Peace.